Hello, friends. Got some earrings. Hope you like them. Okay, color is Sarah. Color that
Hey, do you think you wanna maybe start it? Because it's really loud. I can hear what you're saying.
Okay, probably.
There you are. All good, no worries.
Okay, yeah. I'll just move it off of my computer
Yeah,
instead. Does that work?
that's perfect. I can hear you clear now.
Great.
So, how are you doing this Sunday?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I I was just saying that I was watching my show, Criminal Minds. Very excited about it.
I love
Um,
it.
and I've been feeling very rested. Today is actually such a weird day because I actually feel like I'm just starting to wake up, and I've definitely been up since like 7:40. And I was up, but I was not up.
I know I feel you. The time change in the US is not not doing it for me yet. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I feel the same. And I'm like an early riser too, and for some reason I was still like, oh, can't do it.
Yeah, we had the daylight savings, and I went to sleep
Yeah.
at 1, and I had to wake up at like 7 something so I can get on another call for church.
Ooh,
Uh-uh.
early. Hey,
Yeah,
Adu. What's going on?
yes. I'm so sleepy though. Well, I'm not sleepy now, but I was so sleepy earlier. And it's so funny because I think normally when you've been up for a long time, you feel like the day has been really long. But I literally feel like I'm just waking up now. Like I don't remember nothing from the earlier part of this day.
Oh my gosh. We'll get it together. It's still the afternoon technically. It's creeping on to the evening, but you know, it's all
Yeah, the
good.
West Coast is the afternoon. It is definitely evening now. I feel like after 4, I feel like 4 o'clock
Towards the
to
evening.
like 6 is evening, and then everything else is like night.
I guess so. You're right.
How have you been doing?
I've been good. What did I do today? Busy Sunday. Hey, paper therapy cards. What's going on?
Hello,
But
hello. Thanks for
overall, a
joining.
really good Sunday. I'm excited for this talk, though. We got some good stuff to talk about today.
Yes, we didn't preface y'all, but it is going to be a good conversation. But
Yeah.
we can just start it off now. We are kicking off. This is Let's Unpack with
Mhm.
Jazz.
And Sarah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And we're here to talk about all things creativity, life, and inspiration. So all the lovely, wonderful things.
Yes, and as always, before we do get started, just want to make sure that this is a safe space for our community, and that's reflected in our audience, and the comments, and our guests who are joining us today. So thanks for
Yes, yes,
joining.
indeed. So well, we're gonna get into it. I wanted to share tea of the day or tea of the week. My parents like went out of town and they came back with a bunch of tea, but I wanted to pick something that was not caffeinated. So we've got ginger turmeric herbal tea.
Oh, I love that. I love loose leaf tea too. Okay, yeah, girl.
Yes, indeed. It is ginger and select spices give depth and structure to this intense yet balanced herbal tea. The blending of turmeric and ginger is an ancient combination of flavors. The company, ooh, what does this say? The Spice and Tea Exchange. Doing my thing, what I need to
Mhm.
do. It's definitely very yellow. as turmeric would be, but
Right.
it's
It's
nice.
so good for your like system too. I love that. Me too. I got my tea. I got my ginger green tea. Let me see if I can pull up the little tea bag. It's from a company called Traditional Medicinals. Medicinals. That's how you say it. And it's very good. Cleanse the soul. So makes me
Okay,
feel good.
okay.
Makes me feel good. Yeah.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
as many of you know, our season is all about culture and just kind of how that is affecting and impacting our creative journeys and our overall like life. So today we wanted to talk about specifically the transition from childhood to adulthood and how that is, what is that doing?
Yeah.
What is that looking like for our career paths?
Right. And whether it's shaped our career path or not. So that's what we'll
Yeah,
be talking about. Feel free to also, comment down below and engage with us. So we will give you guys something to think about, give you some discussion topics for later on as well.
got to kick
So,
it off.
yeah.
So, do you want to start off and just kind of like maybe speak a little bit to your childhood? And this is like everything before 18, everything before college. What was that like, I guess, growing up?
Mhm.
What did you want to be when you were little? Like, how
Yeah.
did you come to, I'm going
To,
to go to college. This is like what I'm doing.
yeah, I think so in my childhood, like you said, from kid to 18, so still in high school, um, I kind of changed my career plan so many times just because, I was a kid, like, didn't really have a straight path. And I let, my parents guide me. And, just being an immigrant, a lot of the um, careers that are known are like, doctor, lawyer, business person, economics, things of that sort. So I was like, all right, if these are my choices, don't want to be a doctor. That's a no for me. Science, nope, that's not for me. Lawyer, I played with the ideas like I like social studies, but that's not for me either. And then I was like, you know what, business sounds all right. I can do that, and like
This sounds all right.
adapt. It sounds all right, so I'll go for it. So that's really my only decision making. I was like, well, everybody needs somebody to manage something. So business just seemed like the right fit for me. And so then I went and applied to just the business schools that had a decent business program in Virginia, 'cause that's where I grew up. And I don't think I really cultivated a lot of my like creative nature per se in my former years. Like I think like as a kid, I definitely had the creative tendencies, but in high school, that you just kind of, I don't know, maybe the school that I went to, it wasn't cool to be like in the arts programs and all that. Although I was like in like the music program, things like that, but it was always like, oh, that's weird or whatever. So I never really like highlighted that side of me until like college. Um, but I think, you know, growing up, I just decided business was for me, and that's what I did. I didn't really put too much thought into it because I was just like, I'm having fun.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But
Okay.
how about you? Because I feel like you've had like very opposite experience.
I wouldn't say necessarily opposite. I will say my parents have always been very much like, do what you want to do, I'll support you, yada, yada, yada. My mom wants me to own my own business. She's like, girl, I see you being an entrepreneur one day. And I don't know if she's like also slightly trying to like live vicariously through me. And she's like, I want you to do these things and be your own boss, all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but for me, I actually went to two different high schools. And so the first high school I went to, I was living in New Mexico. I always had, I think, a creative side, and I think when I was very little, like third grade and under, I wanted to be a teacher. But when I was in fourth grade, and I was living in Maryland at the time. I really wanted to be a fashion. I wasn't didn't want to be a fashion designer because I didn't have the design skills. I had a friend. Her name's Alicia Moses. She was my designer friend, or she was the one that would like sketch all of the designs, and then I would just run the business, do all the business stuff. And so I knew I wanted to do something in fashion and business. So when I got to high school, I would always take a lot of like fashion classes or sewing classes and things of that nature. I also got involved with like the dance team, which was like the dance team was very cool. Um, when I moved to Germany, Germany did not celebrate the arts at all. They celebrated
Really?
sports. I mean, honestly, New Mexico, like the school I went to, celebrated sports too. But they didn't really have any like creative outlets that I really remember seeing when I was going to school. I
Right.
still knew that I wanted to do something in fashion and business. And I think my mom kind of was like, oh, fashion merchandising, like that sounds like that might be like what you can do. Like that's a perfect blend of fashion and business. It's right up your alley. And so I don't know that I looked too deeply into fashion merchandising, to be honest, but I was like, I should probably go to a school that has fashion merchandising in it. And because I'm going to school in Germany, I have to like go online and like do a bunch of like research for a school that is going to fit. And another like disclaimer, my parents are in the military. That's why I was living in Germany. And with the military, I thought that I knew I was going on my dad's GI Bill, and I thought that I would have the opportunity to go to whatever school I wanted to. Um, and I would just be considered in state at that school because that is what was communicated to me. That was not the case when I got to Virginia and started going to school. But that was basically the reason that I ended up going to Virginia. Out of the schools that I applied to, I think I got into three:
Hmm.
VCU, got into Howard, and then I got into another school that was like in upstate New York. Regardless, needless to say, the only one that really felt like it fit what I wanted to do, from like a creative standpoint, but then also like get a little bit of business in there too, was VCU. And so that's why I ended up going to college in Virginia. But again, like all I knew is that I wanted to do something in fashion and business. I didn't really know what all of that would entail when I'm going to graduate from college. Like after this 4-year degree, what am I going to do now? What am I looking for? I don't really know. When do you think you started taking your career seriously? Like, and of course, this is more than likely, I'm assuming, going to be somewhere within college and somewhere outside, like post,
Mm.
um, not
Um,
post grad, but because we're not graduate students, but after we graduated. But when did you start like thinking like, oh, I need to like start like I'm gonna
yeah.
graduate. I need to get a job. Like I need to start taking this seriously. I need to start building a career.
Yeah, well, um, I say even before college, I went to a prep school, like a college prep school for high school. So it
Mm,
was ingrained in us like freshman year, everything that you do from this point forward will affect what school you go to. So I think even early on, it was like the anxiety was in us very early. Figure out what
wow,
you do
LOL.
now. And
I
then
must have not cared in high school then.
I mean, and like you said, like there's some schools that focus on the arts and some schools that focus on um well, it was liberal arts focus obviously, but not obviously, but to me, being the fact that I didn't quite know what I wanted to do, it wasn't a school to try a lot of different kind of things. So I really didn't do that until college. So I think that was my true like area where I could like test out, experiment a little bit of like what I actually enjoyed to do. So yeah, although I got some I've taken it serious through high school, but I wasn't able to actually try out a few things to see what actually fit for me until college. Um, However, because it's been so ingrained in me, like figure out something that's serious and stick to it so early on that it took a long time for me to actually figure out exactly what I want to do. And I don't think I figured it out until like the end of my college career, which was like, well, you can't really change your major at that point. So it's like, okay, stick to your business track. And that's what I
Mm.
did. That's what I did. So here I am, graduated, and now I'm making that career change to what I do want to do, which is in design. So um, at the end of the day, it's like you can take something seriously, but you got to find out what works for you at the same time, and not pick something just because it's like looks like the right thing to do in whoever's eyes that is telling you what to do, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
Wow, that almost sounds like you're like a lot of like safety and like a lot of tradition. Like this is what you're supposed to do and this is like what you need to do to kind of maximize the best quality of life in the
Yeah.
future, which is not to say that my parents did not care about those things. Um,
Yeah.
maybe I just didn't. I don't know if I really thought about those things, and I think I am a little embarrassed to say that. Um,
No, I mean, that's really good that you had the freedom to like explore early on. You know, you didn't
I
have
don't know that I really explored too much early on, though. I think when I so I also when I was like really little, I started like going through my feelings and all of that stuff because I was really sad that I was moving around a lot and I was like leaving my friends and I wasn't really feeling very stable. And so I think my mind was really involved in that place rather than, and I knew that I wanted to like go to college just because I wanted to have a chance to explore and I knew that I loved fashion and business. But I remember when I started like my very first class or one of my first classes, they would always ask, so what do you want your career to look like? Or what do you want your job to be when you graduate? And they would go around to everyone in the classroom and I would hear everyone be like, buyer, stylist, store manager, like a visual merchandiser. Those are honestly kind of the only things that I was hearing. And so I was like, oh, I guess that makes sense. Like I never really thought about what job I'm going to get after I graduate until I was in those classrooms. And
Mhm.
then I fiddled around with the idea like, oh, a buyer is kind of like that's a safe job. It's a very business job. Like that kind of sounds like something I can do, something that I would like really match my skill sets. I wasn't interested in that. Not at all. Not at all when I was going through those classes. And I kind of worried, like,
Yeah.
because also with fashion merchandising as a major, like you probably could be a stylist, but the major really isn't tailored for that unless you're gonna like specifically tailor it for that. But you have a little bit of flexibility within the program. But man, I just remember feeling like I I
Okay.
don't know what I'm gonna do because I don't know if this is like the major that I want to continue with, but I also can't think of anything right now in this moment that I would also want to explore. And I'm not gonna like drop out. I'm not gonna take a hiatus. So I kind of just have to stick with this because I put myself in this situation and
Mhm.
hopefully I'll just find something that I like. And I mean, luckily along the lines, I was able to kind of fall into fashion shows and like special events production. And I think when I really found something that I was passionate about, like I was like, oh, like this is what I want to do. This is like what I envision. I think that's when I really started to take that seriously and start pursuing that. Like I was like, oh, I'm gonna hustle. I'm gonna like find all the opportunities that I can. Like I'm gonna make this happen because this is what I want. This is what I'm interested in. And what I'm doing in fashion merchandising, I think a lot of those skills and a lot of the things that I'm learning can help me. I
Yeah.
don't want to be a buyer. Like I knew I didn't want to be a buyer.
Do you feel like that that experience was one that was like a turning point? And do you feel like doing those different kinds of events led you to what you're wanting to pursue now?
So I actually just made this tweet about how I don't understand how I started um, I went from working in fashion shows to like working in advertising. That's like, well, I have to get into that a little bit later. Um, I don't know how I started working in advertising, to be honest. It doesn't really make sense.
Production.
Yeah, it definitely, production is the string that tied all of those things together. I think, sorry, can you ask your question again?
Yeah, I guess. like because you were kind of at loss with your major that you had chosen, because you didn't really see where that fit for what you wanted to do, but you said you had some experiences that opened up to do fashion shows early on,
Yeah.
and that's what you really enjoyed. So I was asking, was that like a turning point for you, and what
Oh yeah.
that kind of led you to what you want to do now?
Yeah. I I think for sure my first fashion show kind of put me in that like mindset of this is what I want to do. I don't exactly know what this is, but I want to do this. And then I think further along, the more fashion shows that I did, um, and even like the more like higher end ones that I did too, where I actually saw like people doing a role that I wanted to do. I was like, I want to be a producer. I want to be a fashion show producer. I want to be a special events producer.
Yeah.
And I want to say VCU, they have an annual fashion show. The very first fashion show I ever went to was the one my freshman year, so May of 2016. That was like, I love this. That was like the turning point for me.
Yeah.
And then the following year, I always did VCU's fashion shows, but
Yeah.
Tim Reed and his wife Daphne Maxwell, they have they put produce like an annual fashion showcase that's like specifically around culture and
Mm.
like various cultures, and so that was like,
That was right up your alley. You were like,
yeah. And I've
if
been
you're not
involved with them ever since.
familiar, Tim Reed plays, oh gosh, now I'm forgetting. Sister Sister,
Yes, he
plays
plays
the
the
father.
father, Ray Campbell.
Yeah. And then his wife is Aunt Viv from
Yes.
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So that's so cool. I still like you talk about them like they're just like regular people, and to me, I'm just like I grew up on them, you know.
Yeah, I think it's because I've been around them so much too, and they are like amazing. But I definitely
Yeah.
do see them as like, I am able to see them as people in that
Yeah.
regard. That,
I
yeah,
know. That's so
because I'm
cool.
like, I'd be working with them. It'd be long hours.
Yeah.
But how about you? What was that turning point for you? I guess, and this could maybe be because I know. I guess the turning point might be from you from like wanting to go from like something in business to something more creative. What
Yeah.
was that turning point for you?
So I think it was experiences outside of the classroom or outside of anything, I guess, work related in a sense. So one of my good friends, he was a photographer, and that's kind of how I met him. I met him while he was doing a shoot, and basically I was like, I was interested in like how that went because I was there more so just for support. My friend was modeling, and um, later on he asked me to model something else for him, and I was like, sure, I'll do it. But then I was just like more interested on the other side of like actually creating rather than modeling. So I was like, okay, well, this is interesting. Let me, you know, play with this idea, this creativity inside of me. And I bought myself my first camera, and I still have the camera. But honestly, that just opened me up to a new world of like, you know, becoming, having creativity become a job and not just like a hobby. And it took me a while to get to that point because I was just so conditioned of like, um, just got to get a job that pays. Honestly, just pays, puts food on the table, and you can do your hobbies on the side. Um, Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah. What would you say, I guess, has been the best piece of advice that you've heard, specifically pursuing a career in the creative industry?
Uh, I mean, I get so much good advice because I just have great friends like you. And um, something recently, one of my friends, I'll shout him out, Knox. He's been like a great inspiration to me, and it's really like I don't know, like making it happen for yourself. Like, of course, I have my faith, and I always leave it up to God but you got to put in the effort. Um, so kind of in a sense, like 25% is the work that you put in, and that's like a hard 25%. 50% is faith, and then the other percent is like manifesting, like speaking it out to the world, finding opportunities and things of that sort that can just bring things that you want. It's so weird to talk about, but bring things you want to come into fruition. Um, so it's just having kind of like that positive mindset to to see, like, you know, the life you want to live is attainable, and it's not just a dream, it's not just, you know, something out there. It can happen, and you just got to make it happen for yourself, honestly. And
Yeah. I've got to agree, actually. I've got to agree. I think there's maybe another thing that I would add, but for me, definitely the best advice I've ever gotten has always been to find ways to create opportunities from yourself. And I've heard that from so many different sources. Like another like really like someone that I kind of see as like a mentor and as like a friend that I always, or not always, but I try to check in with a little bit. His name's Bruce Bofield. He I remember I had like a talk with him before the pandemic when I was still in New York, and he was telling me how some of the best or the most interesting pieces of work that clients or like people that are like interviewers, recruiters, that anyone that would like see of his has always been the work that he's done. It's been his personal projects, and it's been the work that he's been able to do in his free time, and that is like what makes him stand out. There's another kind of mentor such friend that I from a like I used to in fellowship. I had a fellowship at Mother last year. Her name is Maria, and she had told me the same thing. Like the most interesting things or the places that she's been able to get the most opportunities at have been her personal projects. And so, and then of course, I'm like in love with Issa Rae and Kev on Stage. So they're like the pioneers of, if people
make
are not going to do this for you, you have to make it happen for yourself. And the second thing that I was going to add was that something Issa Rae said, that the idea to like growing and building success is not to network like vertically and try to like just network with people that are like higher than you, but network
yeah,
across and really lean on your community and on your peers to grow with you and to grow together. Yeah, between
absolutely
leaning on your community and making your own opportunities is like that's,
up
and I
there.
mean obviously I really, that has been
Yeah,
honestly between distant connections and the personal projects that I've done have been the things that have granted me the most opportunities.
yeah, no, absolutely. I think the things that we've you know, started out of passion, you can really see that in the work, because it's like you're not doing it for a check, you're not doing it for validation, you're doing it for the sole reason of like making good things for people to be a part of. And I think that I love the fact that you said not vertically but horizontal. That's the
Yeah.
culture too, by the way. I don't know, we talked about that kind of power structure before. And I think that's so important. Just always leaning into your community and, you know, grow together. Get up there.
Yeah.
Get
Got
that.
to do the thing.
I do have a question
So
for you though.
yeah, go ahead.
So we talked about like, um, you know, our outlooks and what has kind of brought us up to this point. But what's something on the other side of the spectrum? What's kind of like a decision that you might have not been proud of? Like, what's your worst career decision? I don't have an answer for this either, so I got to think about it.
Worst career decision.
Yeah.
So I'm also I feel like I'm a baby in my career. So I trying to look back at the things that I've done. Um, I think, yeah, putting myself out there has always like helped me and benefited me. I think, okay, so running back, I had an internship when I first graduated college at this company called Bureau Tech. They are wonderful. They are like leaders in the industry. But I think something that a mistake that I would say that I made in that opportunity had to do with my expectations, and learning how to set and manage my expectations in the workplace. I think I was expecting things to move a lot quicker and a lot faster for me. And I was expecting like, oh, I've done this work, and so like
It's all
I
gonna
should get I like
happen.
I've had this whole internship. I should get like a full-time job out of this. And like that's what I feel like I've been working for, and that's what I've felt like I've been communicating. But I think generally the key to happiness is really learning how to manage. I mean, there's a lot of different keys to happiness, but learning how to manage your expectations is like a really big thing. And I think I that's been something that I've had to work on, like not allowing a company to feel like they have all the power and control. Like I am a value and I should treat myself a value. Um, and I should, yeah. I mean, I'm doing good work, but I also need to kind of understand like the scope of everything, and that I don't know, just
That
generally
like your
managing
priorities
expectations.
might not be the company's priorities.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And that's something my one of my coworkers like hones in on me, like that's something if you could tell me anything, it's always good to get some perspective from everybody. That's something he's like he lives by managing your expectations. So ooh,
How
words,
about you?
wise words. How about me? Yeah. I was thinking a little bit more lighthearted. I was gonna say like, my Panera experience, but I'm
Go into it. I mean, that's still an experience.
well no, I'll think of one that actually relates to career wise. That's just a job in college. I wouldn't count that career, you know.
But do you feel like that taught you anything about yourself? Like things that you like, things that you don't like in the workplace?
Um I learned something about myself. I did. And it's like learning how to speak up for yourself in the workplace.
Mm,
So
that's big.
yes, the situation was I recently, okay, before this point, I've only had one other job, which I loved, and my expectation was like up here. I was, a daycare facilitator, the teacher per se. And I just did that after my classes every day. It was just like filled with love and happiness, all this stuff. And I was like, well, I need to do something that can just manage some of my class schedule. So I was like, okay, well, let me just get this Panera job. I shouldn't use the name, anyways. This I said it done already. Anyways, we're not bashing on Panera. Panera is awesome. I still eat there often. I'm a member.
Wow.
But
You actually might be right though. We might need to stop saying these whole companies' names.
we're learning, y'all. Anyways, I'm talking about myself in this situation. Um, that was my second job, and I just didn't know how to like advocate for myself, and getting that time. Like I'm a college student, I needed money to keep up with my expenses out of school, and I was just not getting scheduled because the new people basically don't get scheduled like the older heads do. And so I just kept quiet and I just like worked really hard during those hours that I was there. And I'm like, I'm not getting any reciprocation. So I was still being quiet about it. And as time went on, I still didn't get what I needed, time. And
Mm.
I never communicated that. And then at the end of the day, once I think either spring break or the end of the semester came along, I just kind of was like, hey, I'm going back home. You can put me back on schedule and I'm back for classes. And that didn't happen. And it just kind of was like, I didn't quit. I didn't get fired, but I just kind of left that, relationship lost. And it's weird because you can't really just go back in there and get some Panera, you lost that you lost that trust. So that's a big lesson I learned, is like communicating your needs and like
That's huge.
making sure it's clear what you need. And if they can't give it to you, that's an expectation. So that's right there. It works with your thing. You gotta manage it. And if they can't, then move on to the next job. And I had a great experience after that. So
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That is so huge though, Sarah. Advocating for yourself. Mm,
mm, yeah, that's a big
that
one.
that's a really big one.
Hmm.
Oh,
Definitely.
that's like a learned skill too, and I think something you get more comfortable the more and more that you're working, and the more and more that you really understand the value that you are and understand your worth. Um, I think that it just makes it easier to
Absolutely.
continue to advocate for yourself. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Lesson learned. So now I know I gotta speak up, otherwise they don't know. But yeah.
oh my
Um,
gosh. How would you describe, so this is like a little bit of a turn, but how would you describe, I guess, your work culture? And do you feel like it really aligns with, and we can speak to where we are now, because I know where we want to be that might change, but would you say your work culture, describe it, and then how does it align to like where you want to be? Or just with your personal values?
um well, I think I have two work cultures, because it's our culture here at Distant Connections, the best culture ever. And then my current work culture, which is another thing, is just managing my expectation there too. And it's more of a really structured, and it's in manufacturing, so keep that in mind. There's something called operational disciplines, and that's we follow procedures. And for me, being a creative, that doesn't leave a lot of room to like do what I want to do. But that's the name of the game there. And if you're game, like cool, you will excel there, and you will you know be the one that gets awards and all these kind of things. But if you're one that is creative, there's there's another company out there for you. And luckily, I love the company because they have great values, and I think that's important. Like, do your values align with the company you're working for? But the specific culture of manufacturing is just not for me, and it's good to learn that now than try to like change myself to fit that culture.
Yeah.
So, and unfortunately, you gotta sometimes you just gotta learn it by experience, and yeah, you gotta make that decision for yourself. So, overall, great people, but I'm on to lovelier things.
Lovelier.
For me. For me. Well, that works for me.
Oh, Sarah.
Oh man.
Um, hmm. I think
Yeah.
so. I'm in advertising now, but I'm still kind of in production. Very much so. I think the world of production is very much okay. So I don't remember when, but I know we plan to have another conversation with another group of friends a little bit later about the idea of toxic productivity. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's how I would describe the world of production is very much like work yourself to death, company over everything. This project needs to get done. Things need to get done.
Mm-hmm.
Many working hours and burnout. So what I will say is that a little bit aligns with me because I'm toxic a little bit. Like I like to work a lot. I like to keep myself busy because it keeps me from like being sad. I think if I'm not doing anything, then I just feel like I should be doing something, and I'm a little bit hard on myself, which I know I need to not be. And I try not to be, and sometimes I'm not always, but I like to keep myself busy. I think it keeps me stimulated. It keeps me feeling like I'm getting things done. And so in that regard, being a producer really aligns with me. I don't know if that's something that I can maintain forever. I've been like kind of struggling with that thought too. Like, what are managing expectations, managing myself, and managing my workload is like, I think, going to be this next really big journey of my life. And it's like,
Learning when, I think
yeah,
boundaries, I think that's something that we all need to learn too, is like when to, stop working, put the work down and focus on, whatever else that you think is important in your life, whether it's like family or relations of other sorts.
yeah,
So yeah, I think it's putting a hard line of like, okay, maybe 6 p.m. is when I draw the line to do some self-care or something like that, you know,
yeah.
because if you let them, they'll
I'm gonna
take
work on
all
it.
your time. I
They
learned that
will.
in
But
manufacturing.
I also like, and I think that's another thing too, is it doesn't really have to always be that way. And I think people are trying to like make strides in the regards that like they're very aware. These people or these companies, as much as they might like say that they care, like they're not gonna, like, they only
Productivity.
care for you so much, you know? So it's like you have to care for yourself. And like you said, you have to learn to set those boundaries. And it's funny because I think those, honestly, the idea of working yourself so much goes very much against like what I would say my cultural values are.
Mhm.
And the idea that like, family is important and like that's like where their priority should kind of be, like
Yeah.
that's where they should be at. They should be in your relationships. They should be with your friends. They should be with your family and kind of like building up that community space. And I do feel like I do
I
make
think they
time
do
for
a
my
good job.
community, but it is a little bit like my priorities are very much focused on trying to be like an adult, you know?
Hmm.
And that
Yeah.
takes a lot, at least in the world of production. So
Yeah. Well, that's something you will learn as you go. So with experience comes wisdom. But
mm-hmm.
I have big faith in you, friend. I think you'll do great.
Thanks, friend. All right. Well, we're gonna let you guys get going soon, but we will continue the conversation on Clubhouse about all what this transition from childhood to adult life is looking like, and we really want to hear from you guys as well. Before we
Yes.
go though, we do have a shout out. You
Ooh,
wanna you wanna do our
do.
little shout out, our little small business shout out?
We do. So we're gonna always try to close out with a small business that caught our eye this week. And this week, we love us some card games, but specifically, this one kind of aligns with our topic of culture. So, our small business shout out is and I'm gonna try my best with this name, Kenyatta Forbes. And she is actually the founder of Trading Races, which is a card game that's meant to entertain and educate Black history and was founded since 2017. It addresses topics like race, representation, in order to create spaces for players to engage in conversation. So if you want to give them a perfect, if you want to give them a follow, it's Trading Races. Um, and something cool that they did with partnership of Instagram for Business, it's a page on Instagram as well, is Justin Lamar, who was another Black creator, was able to collaborate with the owner, Kanita Forbes, to then brand it and make it look like awesome for people to purchase. So definitely take a look at that collab. I think that's amazing because we're all about collaboration here. We're
We
all
are.
all of that. So I don't know.
And we all about that like history too and culture. And I have not yet gotten the game, but I will get the game and we will
Yeah.
play. We will
Ooh,
play.
I'll chip in. We got to do it.
Fun
Got
things.
to add it next. So yes, friends, thank you so much for joining. If you
Thanks, friends.
Yes, and if you do want to come to the later discussion, which is starting up, we'll say 5:15. can say that.
Sure. 5:15.
5:15 on Clubhouse. If you guys need a invite, it is specifically only for US right now. DM us and we can give you an invite to join in.
And iPhone users.
And iPhone users. Ugh, so many limitations.
I'll get an iPhone. Yes, but we have plenty of invitations, so just let us know. And we are looking forward to continue the conversation with you there.
All right. Bye.
Bye.